We're up to a year that made musical history in my book. It was the year the Kirkham Report debuted. It was a year of changes, a year of new personalities, a year of farewells, and honestly, it's the best musical year of my lifetime. There are going to be those who dispute that, but I'll talk about why here a little bit, and later on this summer, a mini-series I've been doing. Of the 10 albums I'm going to talk about, 8 of them are must-have for every collection. If you don't have them, you should get them, because you don't know what you're missing. The year was 1978. I'm T.C. Kirkham. This is Vinyl Recall. Welcome to Vinyl Recall. This is the show where I do my top 10 albums of each year based on the thread that Vinyl Richie, I think, started a few months ago. I'm T.C. Kirkham, the Kirkham Report. We're up to 1978. 1978 was the greatest music year in my lifetime. I truly believe that. I was born in 1963, so there's going to be people that argue with me about this. People who grew up, who are older than I was, slightly. But you know, nothing comes close to what came out in 1978. Sorry about that. 1978 was a watershed year for me. I was 15 years old. We turned 15 in March. It was the year I started the Kirkham Report chart. My very first weekly chart started in June of 1978, and it would run every week for 15 years until 1993. It started as a top 20 when it eventually got to top 30 and eventually top 35. A lot of my music changes over the years, and a lot of my musical tastes were changing as well. I was a sophomore in high school by this point. My tastes were changing, although I still liked pop. I gravitated toward more a bigger variety than ever before. And the summer of 78 was especially special. I will talk about that in a mini-series I've been working on for almost 2 years, and that will be coming up this summer. I'm not sure of the date yet, but I'm on the finishing verge of finishing it up, where I'm finally happy with it. And I can't wait to debut it for you. But for now, let's talk about the 10 best albums of 1978. Now, there are a lot of albums that missed this. This was the year I really started buying albums, mostly through the record clubs, but occasionally when I would take a trip to Spokane. And some of the albums I got later on CD. I don't have them on vinyl. One of my favorite albums of 1978, I do not have on vinyl. I only have the CD. It would have made the top 10 had I had it on vinyl. That's Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, which was a groundbreaking recording with some of the best music ever from Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues. I also only have CD copies of a number of other albums, like the Don't Look Back by Boston, Dire Straits debut album. I have other albums that also were just below my top 10, but I have a reason for picking each one of my 10 albums, and I will explain that for now. Albums number 10 and 9, and then 6 forward, are all albums everyone should have in their collection. If they don't, you're missing something. Your collection is not complete, simply because there is something special about those 6 albums. And if you don't have them, I urge you to rush out and get them, because you won't regret it. Let's start at number 10. I've talked about this woman on Influencers last season, and she is just one of my favorite artists of all time, and I really, really continue to love everything, almost everything she does. But there was something special about this album. It is my favorite album by her, and it was part of that fall of 1978 and the magic therein. Dolly Parton, Heartbreaker. This album contains three massive hits. I Really Got the Feeling, Baby I'm Burning, and the title track. Also includes It's Too Late to Love Me Now, We're Through Forever Till Tomorrow, Sure Thing, With You Gone, Nickels and Dimes, The Man, and I Want to Fall in Love. After the pop sound of Here You Come Again, Heartbreaker was more of an AC country sound. The portrait inside is awesome. This is an OG from, I believe, RCA Record Club, the original RCA record label. Dolly's work on this album is superior. I love all of her albums between 1977 and 1984 or so. That's the core of my Dolly Parton collection, and I have almost everything in that time frame, if not everything. Nothing. 9 to 5 and Odd Jobs comes close. Nothing is as good as this album. If you don't have it, you should have it. It is her best album of that era. Dolly Parton, Heartbreaker, number 10. The same goes for the artist at number 9. I did not have this full album until 2 years ago. I had all the singles. I had heard the whole thing online years ago, and I loved it. And when Adam had a copy of it for a decent price, I grabbed it. Again, I have quite a few of her albums in my collection. There are none better. She was coming off her major motion picture debut, and she was really changing up the sound she made from the kind of soft pop leaning country of the early 70s to a more rock and beat driven sound in the late 70s and early 80s. It's another one of those albums everyone should have. If you don't have it, you should. Number 9 from 1978, Olivia Newton-John and Totally Hot. This album includes Please Don't Keep Me Waiting, Dancing Round and Round, Talk to Me, Deeper Than the Night, Borrowed Time, A Little More Love, Never Enough, Totally Hot, Boats Against the Current, and Give Me Some Lovin'. A Little More Love is one of my favorite songs by her. I also love Deeper Than the Night and Totally Hot. Her album track version of Eric Carmen's Boats Against the Current is great. It's not as good as Eric's, but it's great, and it's nice to see somebody else had taken the time to record it. Everything else here is really good. There's no filler on the album. This is what it looks like. And it is on that late 70s, early 80s MCA Records label, the cream colored one. Olivia was coming off of Grease, and Totally Hot was the first album after Grease. A Little More Love was her first single after Grease, and it changed the way people perceived her. From that point on, she was allowed to do rock numbers. She was allowed to do more up-tempo stuff. It would eventually lead to Physical in 1981. This album is a little bit better. I will always love this album, and it is my favorite album by her. Totally Hot, Olivia Newton-John, number 9. Number 8 and number 7 are favorites of mine. They're not going to be favorites of everybody, and I wouldn't expect everybody to get them. So there you go. You have an excuse for the next two. Number 8, I think this is the third album by this gentleman, maybe the fourth to make my year-end list. He was a very important artist in the 1970s. You can deny it all you want to. And I know there's plenty of rockers that would deny it. I don't know that this is my favorite album, but it's one of my favorites, and it definitely has some of the best material of his entire career on it. And that goes for the album tracks as well as the singles. From 1978, number 8, Barry Manilow and Even Now. This album includes Copacabana at the Copa, Somewhere in the Night, a Linda song, Just Can't Smile Without You, Leavin' in the Morning, Where Do I Go From Here, Even Now, I Was a Fool to Let You Go, Losing Touch, I Just Want to Be the One in Your Life, Starting Again, and Sunrise. This is also the best album shot of Barry's career. I love this shot. I mean, we've talked about how terrible his album covers can be. This came with a deluxe inner sleeve, and of course is on the mid 70s Arista Black label. Um, 4 huge hits from this album: Copacabana, Somewhere in the Night, Even Now, and Can't Smile Without You, which was recorded live. Um, a Linda song is one of my favorite story songs by him. He does great story songs, and he always has. And that one is one of my favorites. I also love Where Do I Go From Here? And I Just Want to Be the One in Your Life. Classic stuff that could have easily been hit singles. Um, this is one of Barry's best. And it's not my favorite, but it's very close. Number 8 for 1978, Barry Manilow, and Even Now. Gonna get a drink. Gotta keep lubricated while I'm talking. Number 7 is going to be the laughingstock of this group. But I'll tell you something. Out of the 5 albums that this dude produced between 1977 and 1982, this is easily the best. It has his biggest hit on it. And while I don't like the cover shots, the album itself has 2 classic songs and a third that was almost a classic, and a flip side that was a classic for me, for pop fans, for Teen Idol fans. Number 7 for 1978, Leif Garrett, Feel the Need. This is the only album you're going to see on my top 10 list by him. This includes I Was Made for Dancin', Groovin', Forget About You, Once a Fool, Fun, 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 Sheila, When I Think of You, This Time, Living Without Your Love, and Feel the Need. Interestingly enough, I Was Made for Dancing was his biggest and last top 40 hit on the pop chart. It hit number 10. It was a great song. The other 2 singles from the album would both be remixed before they were released. Feel the Need was completely re-recorded and released in the summer of '79. And When I Think of You was also remixed with a longer end vocal. And it actually charted well on the AC chart, which he had never charted on before. Album cover, this originally came with an insert with some pictures on it. It doesn't. This is an OG I got the day it came out on Scotty Brothers, his label. I like his cover of Fun, Fun, Fun by the Beach Boys. It's well done. His cover of Tommy Rose Sheila isn't bad. I like the original ballad Living Without Your Love as well. But I Was Made for Dancing, When I Think of You, and Feel the Need are his 3 best songs as singles, and they always will be. Great album. Even if you don't like it, you've got to be familiar with I Was Made for Dancing. And it truly is a disco classic, and so is this album. Number 7 for 1978, Leif Garrett, and Feel the Need. Okay, we're up to the top 6, and this is going to be the serious stuff. Not that this wasn't. I love these albums too, but these 6 are going to be the ones with the vinyl community going like, wow, he picked that? I mean, a couple of them especially, but especially number 6. This album is by a band that has never taken off in America. They never had a major hit. They had an AOR hit in 1979 off of this album, and it was that single that led me to the album, and I love this album, and I always did. It has it's a rock, it's a very almost, for 1978, very bordering on progressive rock sound, but also has elements of bands like Styx, Dire Straits, few other ones in there, Pablo Cruz. It's a mix of yacht rock, new wave, and whatever you would call what Dire Straits did. I never considered them fully rock, but I never considered them fully new wave either. And this album, I'll talk about this band. I had it on Obscuria a few months ago, the single, and people were like, I've never heard this before. It was a huge hit in Washington on our AOR stations, and it did, it made the Kirkham Report, obviously. And people have said, I've never heard of the band. You should have. This is an album you should explore. It is a great album, and they deserve to be better known than they are. From 1978, number 6, Sad Cafe and Misplaced Ideals. This is an album that is a compilation of their first 2 albums from England, plus 3 or 4 new tracks. Restless, Here Come the Clowns, Run Home Girl, Black Rose, I Believe Love Will Survive, Babylon, Shell Shock, Hungry Eyes, Feel Like Dying, and On With the Show. Best known for vocalist Paul Young, who was not the solo singer Paul Young. He led Sad Cafe and later was part of Mike and the Mechanics. He passed away unexpectedly a few years ago. Sad Cafe, I love this. I picked up their second album from Adam a couple years ago, and loved it. They are a band that deserves better recognition. This is an RCA Records Club pressing. They are on A&M. And this album contains the long version of Run Home Girl, which was their AOR hit in America. The only song they really caught on with anywhere. It was a huge hit on Creme FM in Spokane, and also on, I've forgotten the call letters. I can look it up in the radiography on my site. But the station that used to run Dr. Demento in Walla Walla was an AOR station, and it was also big on there. Great stuff. Very prog rocky, but not quite what I'm sure progressive fans would go, that's not prog. Well, it sounds prog to me. That's all I can say. If you've not heard this, find it on a streaming service and listen to it. This album is spectacular. The streaming services have 5 or 6, maybe as many as 8 other songs, because they've really pulled it together with a bunch of extras. This album deserves more than it gets. If you've not heard it, explore it. Sad Cafe and Misplaced Ideals, number 6 for 1978. Number 5 might surprise people too. I am a pop fan. I like heavy metal. I also like new age. I like a little bit of everything. About the only thing I really don't like is hardcore country, hardcore rap, and opera. And I like some hip-hop and a little bit of everything. This guy introduced me to pop jazz. Well, in his style of pop jazz, at least. I was already a huge Manhattan Transfer fan. But this album has been retitled since it came out. This is an OG from 1978. It introduced him. He has been one of the most important players in the smooth jazz vocals area for 4 decades, 5 decades now. And the interesting thing is, he only had one really, really big hit off this album. 2 of the other songs, the singles, hit big on my chart. One of them actually hit number 1. I love his voice. I love his style. The production work here is fantastic. And it was one of the most critically acclaimed albums at the time of the year. It came out right at the tail end of the year in late November, I believe. And his biggest hits were in 1979. But this man is somebody I just adore. Everything I've ever heard of this man, I adore. 1978, number 5, Bobby Caldwell, by Bobby Caldwell. This album in stores later was retitled for the first hit single. So you may see the same cover, but underneath the Bobby Caldwell will be the words, What You Won't Do for Love. This is the original OG without that title. It includes Special to Me, My Flame, Love Won't Wait, Can't Say Goodbye, Come to Me, What You Won't Do for Love, Kalimba Song, Take Me Back to Then, and Down for the Third Time. This is the only album, I think the only, well, no, he's the only artist that I own on the Clouds record label, which was a subsidiary of TK out of Hialeah, Florida. This is his debut, and it is phenomenal. It has more of a dance beat. He has a little R&B, a little soul, a little jazz, a little disco in him. And that voice. The man is just a vocal powerhouse. And I'm if you've not listened to it again, I consider this a must-have for every collection. I have several of his. I have one more album on vinyl. I have 5 or 6 albums on digital. Love this guy, and I will always love this album. What You Won't Do for Love, of course, was the big hit. Can't Say Goodbye hit #1 on the Kirkham Report chart the first week of 1980, or the last week of the first week of December 1979. And My Flame was also a huge hit on the Kirkham Report. This album is perfect from beginning to end for me. And if you're not familiar with it, please check it out. Check him out. His catalog is well worth exploring. #5, Bobby Caldwell and Bobby Caldwell / What You Won't Do for Love. #4, I want to show you this because this was the first album I ever encountered this with. Another one by one of my favorite artists. I'm not big into live albums, but there are certain ones I love. This is one of them. But I also mostly love it for the side 4. It's a 2-record set because side 4 has, you know, her biggest hit of 1978 and the song that I love that my wife loathes. Not just her version, but the original version. But this is a live greatest hits collection, and a couple of things you don't expect her to do, and it's fantastic. Live and More, Donna Summer. This was released in the fall of 1978. This is an RCA Record Club edition with that cool flap there. There's the die cut thing. I was talking about that on Influencers this week. This one is quite interesting because when I got this, one whole side was messed up. It had a double label, and it is so bad that it actually is in the grooves at the very end of side 3. And I mean, you really can't play the last song on side 3 without it screwing up. Of course, on Casablanca, Donna is one of those artists that pretty much can do no wrong with me. I worshipped the ground she walked on. This includes Once Upon a Time, Fairy Tale High, Faster and Faster, Spring Affair, Rumor Has It, I Love You, Only One Man, I Remember Yesterday, Love's Unkind, the My Man medley, which included The Man I Love, I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good, and Some of These Days. Donna's incredible take on The Way We Were, and Mimi's song, which she wrote for her daughter. Try Me, I Know We Can Make It, Love to Love You Baby, I Feel Love, and Last Dance. Last Dance is the song you can't play all the way through on this. And side 4 is the original, was also released as a 12-inch single. It's the MacArthur Park Suite, which includes MacArthur Park, One of a Kind, Heaven Knows, and MacArthur Park Reprise. My wife loves MacArthur Park. Lyrically, it's ridiculous, and she's right about that. She really hates the Richard Harris version, too. This album is so close to my heart. I played it so much, except for the very end of Last Dance. I actually purchased a new copy of it from Adam a couple years ago that isn't screwed up. This is my OG. #4, one of the best live albums ever, and the MacArthur Park Suite, which no disco fan can live without. Live and More, Donna Summer. I told you at the very beginning of this show when I started it that soundtracks would only be included if they were absolutely necessary. Last time, 1977, I included Saturday Night Fever and Star Wars because they were very important. In 1978, so was this one. You could not listen to the radio in the summer of 78, actually starting about April of 1978, even though the movie didn't come out till July, without hearing songs from this album. You still hear them. They're still popular. They're still all over oldies radio. It is an enduring album that everybody will always love, and they should. #3 for 1978, John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, soundtrack from Grease. Grease is one of the funnest movies ever made. It has some of the greatest music of all time and some of the greatest songs that were later written for this movie that weren't part of the original stage show that now are a part of that original stage show because they picked them up. They rewrote the stage show to fix some of the stuff and pick up some of the songs that were written for the movie. So, this album includes Grease by Frankie Valli, Summer Nights by John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, and cast. Hopelessly Devoted to You by Olivia Newton-John. You're the One That I Want, John and Olivia, and Sandy by John Travolta. Beauty School Dropout by Frankie Avalon. Look at Me, I'm Sandra Dee by Stockard Channing. Grease Lightning by John Travolta and Jeff Conaway. It's Raining on Prom Night, Cindy Bullens, Alone at a Drive-In Movie, an instrumental. And Blue Moon. Blue Moon, Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay, Those Magic Changes, Hound Dog, Born to Hand Jive, and Tears on My Pillow, all by Shauna Na. Mooning by Louis St. Louis and Cindy Bullens. Freddie My Love by Cindy Bullens. Rock and Roll Party Queen by Louis St. Louis. There Are Worse Things I Could Do by Stockard Channing. Look at Me, I'm Sandra Dee, the reprise by Olivia Newton-John. We Go Together, Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta, and cast. And the instrumental piece of Love Is This Many Splendid Thing, and the reprise of Grease by Frankie Valli. I mean, how could you go wrong with this? The Grease Mega Mix was a huge hit in 1993 or 94, where it basically had all their hit songs mixed into one. It was great. This movie is great. This soundtrack is great. It should be in everybody's collection. If you don't have it there, why not? Number 3 from 1978, the soundtrack from Grease. Number 2. I told you that I started gravitating more toward rock, a little bit more rock than pop as I got older. This band was the first one to really get me into arena rock, and then later on, in early 1980, Def Leppard came along. But this band, I never got to see them in concert. And I really regret that. I always wanted to. This is one of 3 albums of their collection that I consider must-have. It is an absolute beast from beginning to end. There is no bad song on this album. It is phenomenally good. It produced 3 big hits, 4 big hits, I think. Just 3, maybe just 3. And it is considered by many of their fans the best album of their career, and it deserves to be. Number 2, Double Vision by Foreigner. This album includes Hot Blooded, Blue Morning, Blue Day, You're All I Am, Back Where You Belong, Love Has Taken Its Toll, Double Vision, Tramontane, I Have Waited So Long, Lonely Children, and Spellbinder. Hot Blooded, Blue Morning, Blue Day, and Double Vision, all singles from this album. They had a custom Atlantic label when it was released. I listened to this album backwards and forwards over and over again, to the point where I could sing every song of it on the album. There used to be this great magazine called Song Hits, which had lyrics published every month. People always wondered how I knew the lyrics to all the songs. That was one of the ways. The other ways was that the lyrics came with the album, which they didn't with this, or I just listened and learned them. With this one, I definitely did that, and it was terrific. It came out in the fall of 1978, and is the first of 3 must-have albums by this band. I have everything from the 70s and most of the 80s, and we'll talk about 2 more of them when we get into the 80s, because they'll definitely be on my list. I'll be surprised if they don't make it. But this album, not only, the thing that grits me is some of my favorite songs are album tracks. I love Back Where You Belong, which is one of my favorite songs on this album. And Tramontane, which is an instrumental, is one of my favorite songs of all time by them. I don't know why. It's very repetitive. It's keyboard oriented more than guitar. But it is phenomenally good. It was the flip side of Hot Blooded, I believe. It was on the flip side of. And it's just an incredible album and incredible music from an incredible band. They were one of my all-time favorites. Foreigner, Double Vision, number 2 from 1978. I have my solid groups of people that I love. You guys know that. I've often mentioned that my top 3 artists are the Carpenters, Hanson, and Def Leppard. If that top 10 was also there, Foreigner would be there, this man I'm about to talk about would be there, the Ready Set would be there, a few others. Um, but I'm very picky when it comes to actually saying this album is all-time favorite. This album is my all-time favorite. My number one album from 1978, I think, is the most perfectly constructed pop album in history. It is appealing to pop fans, yacht rock fans, easy listening fans. It has something for everyone. And the best part about it is the vinyl community seems to like this guy. They've brought him up on a few things. Few people have brought him up. And this album is considered a classic. It was a critically acclaimed album when it came out, and it made me a fan of this man for life. Although I didn't realize it at the time when I first got it. I knew him from his earlier work. This album got played so much because every song is great. Every song is perfect to me. And I love his writing, I love his style, I love his voice. I always did. And I always will. The only album that even comes close to this album as my favorite is Hanson's 2003 release, Underneath. Even the Carpenters don't come up this far. And that tells you something. My number one album in 1978 and my very favorite album of all time, City to City from Jerry Rafferty. Album includes his monster hit Baker Street and its follow-ups, right down the line. Also includes The Ark, City to City, Stealin' Time, Maggie's Rag, Whatever's Written in Your Heart, Home and Dry, which was the third single, Island, and Waiting for the Day. I found out after getting the album and listening to Casey Kasem that he had been the leader of Stealers Wheel. So that's why I recognized the voice. The second that sax kicks in at the beginning of Baker Street, I'm sold. If there's anything I love more, it is an incredible rock sax riff. No, not riff. Keyboards are great too. Guitars are good too. But a saxophone will pull me in every time. Baker Street is my all-time favorite single. It's just my all-time favorite song. There are a few others that come close to it. And there are a few others that come close to this album. But not as close as Hanson's Underneath. The rest of them are kind of down below that. You can take your Beatles. You can take your Led Zeppelin. You can take your modern acts like Nirvana, or that's actually classic rock now. I'll take Jerry Rafferty's City to City any day. This is my OG copy. I also have a copy of the just reissued album on orange vinyl, 180 gram. And for some reason, the sleeve does not want to come out of this. There you go. Has that wonderful United Artists sleeve with the colors and the advertisements for other United Artists albums. There's that wonderful orange United Artists label. This album is completely perfect to me. And in addition to Baker Street, Whatever's Written in Your Heart is a song that touched me from the very beginning. It is a long song at just over 6 minutes. It is quite possibly, construction-wise, the greatest song Jerry Rafferty ever wrote. And the entire album, I don't know what is wrong with this thing, has made me love everything he's done. I'm sorry I'm having so much trouble getting that back in the sleeve. I don't know what's going on. It didn't give me that much trouble when I played it a couple of weeks ago. The album is perfect. It literally is a perfect pop album. You've got sounds for rockers, you got sounds for AOR, you got sounds for pop fans, AC fans. Jerry does it all. He does it very well. There's no better combination. This, to me, is the best album of all time. And it probably always will be. If Hanson didn't knock it out with Underneath, and it came real close, I don't know if anybody's ever going to do it. We'll find out as I crack into my 60th year here. Number 1, 1978, Jerry Rafferty and City to City. My top 10, recapping. Number 10, Heartbreaker by Dolly Parton. Number 9, Totally Hot by Olivia Newton-John. Number 8, Even Now by Barry Manilow. Number 7, Feel the Need by Leif Garrett. Number 6, Misplaced Ideals, Sad Cafe, the U.S. version. Number 5, Bobby Caldwell by Bobby Caldwell, also known by the alternate title, What You Won't Do for Love. Number 4, Live and More, Donna Summer. Number 3, the soundtrack from Grease. Number 2, Double Vision by Foreigner. And number 1, Jerry Rafferty and City to City. Some of the things I left off my list that I also adore from 1978 includes Linda Carter's album Portrait, which, if you were a fan of hers, you knew she was a singer before she was an actress, and she was fantastic. The same can be said that same year for Cheryl Ladd's debut album. Cheryl Ladd produced a hit called Think It Over. Always bigger in Japan than in America as a singer, but that album is phenomenally good. Also, Infinity by Journey, Son of a Sailor by Jimmy Buffett, Heaven Tonight, and At Budokan from Cheap Trick, Dire Straits' debut album, Under Wraps by Sean Cassidy, which is his best album. If you've not heard it, you should. Twin Sons of Different Mothers by Dan Fogelberg and Tim Weisberg. The 4 Kiss solo albums that came out that year. Toto's debut album, The Police's debut album, comeback album for Captain's Neil, Dream, which is my favorite album by them, Worlds Away, Pablo Cruz. There are tons of others I have on either digital or CD that I do not have on vinyl or chose to leave off because these 10 are it for me. 1978 was a watershed year for me. My taste would slowly start changing, as we will see when we get into 1979 and 1980, as my musical horizons grew. A lot of that was thanks to one lady. I don't know if she's still out there. I tried to look her up online. I know she was still around a few years ago. Her name was Kenna Kay Elledge. She was in her mid-20s. She lived in Harrington. She was a beautician, and she ran her little beauty shop called the Denim Rose, which had one chair, and she became friends with my mom and I. She was not that much older than me. I was in 16, 17. I think she was 23 or 24 when she moved to town, and she became a friend, and we became music buddies. She introduced me to the Police. She introduced me to the world of AOR music that was Creme FM in Spokane. Through her, I found so many artists I probably never would have heard, and I want to thank you publicly, Kenna Kay, for doing that for me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know what you're doing. If you ever see this, let me know. I think that there is a lot to be said for the next 2 years, 1979 and 1980, and you will see my tastes still remaining TC, but changing a little bit more sophisticated, maybe, or maybe a little bit more classic-minded. We'll see. We'll get there in the next couple of weeks. But until then, that was my 1978, and I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done so, please do. If you are already subscribed, thank you, and please help me spread the word by sharing the shows. And don't forget to leave a comment. Your comments are very important to me, and I love hearing what you have to say. I try to get back to comments within 2 or 3 days at the latest now, and I really enjoy corresponding with you, so please let me know. This continues on. Next week it'll be 1979. As I said, there'll be some interesting things in there all over the road, and we'll see what you think. I hope you like this list too, but if not, I'm sure you'll let me know. Until next time, for Vinyl Recall, I'm TC Kirkham, the Kirkham Report. Have a great week. See you on my other shows. Ciao, baby.